Good evening and welcome to another episode of Work That Matters, an ongoing conversation with the one and only Lesley Israel. And if you're not familiar with her credentials, you can very easily go online now to www.lesleyisrael.com, where this show lives, and you can see a whole wealth of information there. It really catalogs her entire career, and it's growing every single day. Now, we have a very special show, the 5th episode today, in fact, of Work That Matters, and it's a bit of a theme show, kind of like the last one we covered family. This one, we're covering elections, campaigns, and the like, and we're doing it on midterm election day, which is no coincidence. We planned that. But anyway, so Lesley, it's wonderful to have you. How are you today?
I am just fine and glad to be with you.
Excellent. I'm glad, as always. Now, you've worked in politics your entire life. What is the most challenging assignment that you've ever had?
Well, I guess the biggest one was Bosnia, where I organized their first election after they left to be part of the Soviet Union. And, just because it was from the very start, had to help write the election laws and organize everything and get it going. But also I've done some not many in places like Africa, but, where there wasn't much existing background to work from.
Right.
So that's always a challenge.
And you spent some time in Bosnia as well. We covered that in an earlier episode. I'll never forget the story about how you had to be careful just getting out of the car to go to the bathroom on the side of the road because landmines everywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
That's pretty wild. It's scary.
Fortunately, I didn't get blown up.
You didn't get blown up. You lived to tell about it. The whole story. What is the most fun that you've ever had working in politics?
I can't think of an incident, but definitely the people I worked with have always been wonderful and fun.
Now, I want to talk about your responsibilities on the Hubert Humphrey campaigns, and that's campaigns plural to those of you out there listening.
Yes, I've worked on several.
What was that like? What did your average day entail? And did you have the same job on each of those Humphrey campaigns?
Well, not exactly the same, but kind of, because my specialty was communications, and so often I did that. I would help, or I would often help write the rules, but I also worked primarily on communications, coordinating communications with voters, and also with the people we were working with.
You were involved in the media aspect of things, of course, or communications, as you just put it.
Yeah.
Was that something that you planned from the beginning, or is that a role that you eventually filled out of convenience or necessity? How did you end up on the media side of things?
My parents were journalists when I grew up with.
So you grew up in that world, and because of that, you gravitated to that when you went into politics.
Yes.
And very interesting. Now, you've worked on campaigns for many other prominent individuals as well, including Scoop Jackson, Birch Bayh, Teddy Kennedy, to name a few. Is it the same playbook, so to speak, for every candidate, or is there a different strategy for different people?
Well, the specifics might be different, but the process is similar.
Right.
It depends what their policies are, what their priorities are. Obviously, you adapt to that, but you still, the mechanics are pretty much the same. I remember going to work on a local campaign here, and recently we're just a volunteer level, and saying if you need any help with, working with the press and that kind of thing, I know something about that. They said, oh, no, we have this wonderful book that was written on the Humphrey campaign. And they tells us everything we needed to know. Of course, I wrote the book, but I didn't know that.
So they said, we have a book that might be helpful, and it turns out you were the author of that book.
I had been the author, yeah.
That's such a great story. Now, what was the last major campaign that you did before moving on to the more local ones?
I guess the last one was Ted Kennedy.
On a campaign, did you have to kind of like cater to the personality strengths of a candidate? Custom tailor the campaign to that person's strengths, for example?
Well, to some extent, that you tailored it to the candidate because he or she had a particular kind of message that they wanted to get out, kind of personality. But as I say, those are the specifics that vary, but the process was the same.
Okay. Now, did you advise some of these bigger candidates directly, face to face? In other words, did you interact one-on-one with them?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I imagine so. So they relied on you and they trusted you directly.
Yeah.
You said recently that none of your candidates made it to the White House, unfortunately. But how much of that do you think has to do with the actual campaign itself, and how much has to do with the candidate or other factors?
Most of it would have been the candidate and other factors, because that would usually, the candidate is generally what determines the campaign.
Yeah.
People will vote for or not vote for.
When you're involved in a campaign, do you interface with the opponent's campaign people as well? Do you go back and forth with them, or is it a very isolated sort of thing where you're never really in touch?
You're not normally in touch with them. They watch what they're doing, but you're not in touch with them.
How many state and local campaigns did you take part in after you stopped doing the big ones?
Oh, probably half dozen.
Okay. And those were all within the last few years?
Well, not in the last couple of years, because I've been out of the process for a while, but they were, after the presidential.
Yeah.
And I had a Politics Inc. My consulting firm was Politics Inc., and we did campaigns.
If you were running a big campaign in 2022, what would you do differently than you did in the 60s and 70s? In other words, do you think today's campaigns are different than the old days?
Well, I assume that, the media is certainly different. The internet is a major, major part of the media these days.
Yeah.
For instance, and it wasn't so much in those days. So media would have been very critical, and of course, I don't know what else was different because you had to reach out to the voters,
right?
And that was the important thing. And then how you did it was what mattered.
Yeah. Now today is, of course, midterm election day, which is why we're doing.
Voted early by mail.
You did, okay. When you see campaign advertising and fundraising materials on TV or in your email, as I know you get a lot of those too, I do as well, I'm sure that a certain degree of, I don't want to use the word embellishment because that's probably not the right word, but just kind of like pizzazz, marketing sizzle goes into these things to excite people, to animate them, to get them to contribute and stuff like that. Now, people are saying on the left now that, and on the right too for that matter, that this is the most important election ever and that democracy is on the ballot. That's a phrase that everyone's throwing around the last few weeks.
We always do say that every election.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Like we've heard that a lot. So do you think it's any truer this time around, or is it just business as usual?
I think it's pretty much business as usual.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I wouldn't want to lose this one, but I feel that way about all of them.
And that leads to my next question. If Democrats do lose the House and possibly even the Senate, what do you think the country is going to look like, the next few years? How drastic a change is it going to be? Is it really going to be that drastic, or is it?
Well, it will be not as drastic as we dread because, Congress is still there and is still, they're still voting for the American people. But it's certainly not a good time.
So do you think it's helpful or harmful when news pundits get on TV and even politicians and they say that, this is going to be the final election if Republicans win, or vice versa, or the final Democratic election ever? Do you think that is extreme?
Yeah. Of course it's extreme. This one is critical, so is the next one, so is the
They
last
all
one.
are.
They all are. I think this one is critically important, but I'll say the same thing next time.
Right. Now, do you think that what happened over the summer with Roe v. Wade has made this one particularly important?
It's made it especially important, yes.
Yeah.
Especially interesting, and it's motivated a lot of people to get involved for that specific reason because they feel strongly about it.
Right, right. Now, do you think that today's GOP is as lawless and dangerous as they say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. Well, they used to be moderate. My parents were Republicans, but they were Eisenhower Republicans, not the same party anymore.
So the Trump Republican of today is very different than the Eisenhower, or even the Reagan Republican, I would.
Oh, yeah. I think it's very extremist.
Yeah. And what are some examples of that extremism?
Oh, of course, abortion is the big one that everybody tends to think about.
Yeah.
And, and all guns. I don't think everybody should have a gun in their pocket. And lots of other stuff.
In conclusion, I think that you being the expert in your field that you are, you have a great, I'll say, responsibility. I don't want to put pressure on you because you're just doing your thing. You just do what you've always done. But we'll say responsibility, just for lack of a better term. A responsibility to kind of calm the waters, I think, but also inspire people and influence them so they know.
And my days when I was at the top of the campaigns are behind. I'm in my 80s. It's somebody else's turn.
Exactly. So the fresh blood is.
I don't go into campaign headquarters every day. I live in my house on the Eastern Shore.
Yeah.
I read my email.
Well, I bet if you did go into the campaign headquarters, though, you'd probably get a pretty nice greeting from a lot of people, I would bet.
Oh, yeah. A lot of them I don't know. They're too young.
Yeah. Do you keep in touch with a lot of the people from the old days?
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's great that somebody like you can come out and say, the sky's not falling. The country will continue the way that it's gone. But do go out and vote anyway, because it counts. And it
does count. The country's going to go on.
Even if Donald Trump becomes president again?
America's not going to collapse.
No.
I might.
That is reassuring, because I think there are a lot of people out there that believe the worst. And it seems like a common theme these days that comes from both sides, both Democrats and Republicans, that there's such a divide between the parties that it's almost like a hatred that's going on now.
Yeah, it does feel like that now. I guess it's also felt like that in the past, but somehow it seems worse now.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if it actually is, or if it's just maybe because of technology and everybody's opinion is just amplified because of that. You never know.
Probably.
That's probably part of it.
We felt very strongly back when, too.
Of course, yeah. Not much.
Think people felt strongly in the early days of the Republic or during the Civil War? Of course they did.
Of course, exactly. And this isn't even the most divided that we've ever been.
That's right.
Well, that's great. It's good to have that calming presence coming from you, that's for sure. So I hope that everybody, by the time they hear this, they'll have already voted, because it takes a few weeks to produce. But nevertheless, it's nice that this was actually recorded on Election Day, and I think that it'll age well as a result of that, and it'll capture a bit of that energy too that the show, I think, overall will benefit from. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Very good. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you as always, and we'll catch up again in episode 6.
Absolutely, and thank you so much.
My pleasure.